Hey y'all, it's your girl Mecca, back in here with another video. This is my third time trying to film this video, so let's hope that the third time is a charm, because I'm tired. But if you are new here, welcome, whether you came from TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you're coming from. Thank you for being here. For all of my returning subscribers, y'all know y'all the goats, okay? Y'all the goats. Thank y'all for being here. If you do not know who I am and this is your first time seeing my face, like I said, I am Mecca. I am a Hoodoo practitioner, tarot reader, self-published author, and I am the owner of Marini's Conjure Botanica, which I will leave all of that information in the description box, so you can click those links and check that out if you so choose. I'm not going to get too deep into an intro. You can look at the rest of my videos for that, but this is a Hoodoo channel where we talk about all things Hoodoo, all things spiritual, and we connect traditional conjure with millennial needs, okay? So that's just a tad bit of what we do over here. So we're going to get into this video because I don't want this video to run too long. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of it, okay? If you see me looking over into my right, that is because I have notes, because your girl is known to go off on a tangent. Ask anybody who has ever been in any of my lives. I will, look, I'll be here talking for 3 hours, okay? So, that being said, this video is a video that I've been wanting to do for a while. I've had several people ask me the question about my spiritual journey and how I got from point A to where I am now. So that is what we are going to be discussing, as you can see by the title of the video. This video is titled From Hallelujah to Hoodoo, okay? So let's get into it. So I guess if I had to start off, I would start off by saying that I've always had some type of connection to Hoodoo, even though I didn't really know that there was a name for it. And I remember that my first memory of feeling a connection to Hoodoo, even though I didn't know it back then, was growing up in church, okay? I am a Koji kid. I grew up in the Church of God in Christ in the South, in Virginia, and anybody who's grown up in the South and grew up in church knows that culture, okay? We don't even need to get into all of that, but you know the culture, okay? And I grew up, like I said, Church of God in Christ. And in the church that I grew up in, shout out to Spirit Life in Fayetteville, Virginia, womp womp. But in the church that I went to, I remember there being this picture of this man in the foyer. And every Sunday, I used to be so intrigued by this picture. Later come to find out, the picture that I was so intrigued by and couldn't take my eyes off of was none other than Bishop Charles H. Mason. And if you're new to Hoodoo, as you do your Googles and as you do your reading and as you do your searches, you will find out that Bishop Charles H. Mason was one of the founders of the Church of God in Christ, but he was also a very well-known and out-loud Hoodoo practitioner. He was a very well-known root worker. He incorporated root work and conjure into his services. He actually has a very, very interesting story. So if you are new to Hoodoo and you need somebody to research and learn more about, I would definitely start there. I adore Bishop Mason. Like, I really, really do. Like, he's one of my favorite Hoodoo practitioners. But that was my first connection to it. Fast forward, yeah, like I said, I grew up Kojic, very strict family, and I really didn't have a say in going to church until I was about 14 years old. When I was about 14 years old, my family stopped going to church regularly, and so I wouldn't say that I was either agnostic or atheist. I just knew at that point that I wasn't a Christian. I had so many questions. It was one of those things that we were really forced to do, and outside of being forced to do it, I really found out that I had no interest in Christianity at all. So fast forward, like I said, age 14 is when I really started to like question everything. I didn't consider myself a Christian at that point. We're going to fast forward to 2009, okay? 2009, I moved to Fayetteville, North Carolina, and when I moved to Fayetteville, I was still in that space of not really knowing where I stood spiritually. I still believed in God. I still prayed, I guess you could say. But I knew I wasn't a Christian. And I ended up moving in with my aunts. And my twin aunts were practicing Wiccans. I was about to say are, but I'm not sure if they still practice. But back then they were practicing Wiccans, and again, I was intrigued, I was interested because it was different. It was something that was thrilling to me because before, like I said, I grew up Kojic, so we weren't allowed to do any of that, okay? If you know, you know. But I was intrigued by it, but I didn't really feel a connection to it, so I never really considered myself Wiccan, and I never really practiced Wicca. All I did was really kind of observe and learn about it. It wasn't until about 2012 when I was going through a really hard time in life that I started to search out different spiritual practices. And I ended up running into a lady who I will affectionately call Ma. She was the mother of my brother's producer, and she just opened my eyes to a lot of stuff, like a whole bunch of stuff spiritually that I had never been aware of. And she started by digging into my astrological my astrological chart. And once she did that, and once I was introduced to astrology, that just opened the door for everything. It opened the door for astrology, tarot, all of the things. And it was then that I started to really embrace my gifts, to really acknowledge my gifts, because these are gifts that I always had, and I just kind of like dumbed them down or ignored them because, again, I grew up Kojic. We weren't allowed to deal with that stuff. But the two gifts that I realized that I had was I was very cognizant, which is I have the gift of knowing. I just be knowing shit. I always tell people my knowing be knowing, okay? So I'm cognizant, and I am a master manifester. I literally have to watch the words that I say. I have to watch the things that I think because they manifest in real time, okay? So back then is when I started to really understand my gifts, dive deeper into my gifts, and that was around the same time that I started to have a lot of dreams about my grandparents. My grandfather passed in 2006. I was extremely close to him. My grandmother passed in 1992 when I was 2 years old, and from what I understand from the stories I've been told, I was extremely close to her as well. I was the first grandchild, so I was the baby, okay? But I was extremely close to my grandparents, and I started having dreams about them. And the thing that kind of set me off as far as like wanting to know why they were coming to me in my dreams was the fact that, like, my grandfather had always came to me in my dreams. My grandmother, not so much. So when my grandmother started to appear in my dreams, and then when they started to appear together in my dreams, I felt like that was a sign and that I needed to dig more into it. And I remember having a dream that I was sitting on a porch. Me and my mother were sitting on our old porch when we lived in Milwaukee, because that's where I was born at, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We were sitting on the porch with my grandparents, and mid-conversation, they just kind of got up and started walking off the porch. And when I was younger, my grandparents had a Burgundy Park Avenue, and I remember this car like it was yesterday. They had a Burgundy Park Avenue, and in my dream, I remember them walking down the steps, getting into the car, and I remember looking at the car, and it had one of those like car curtains that you see in like hearses and stuff like that. And so I remember asking my grandfather, like, pause, like, where are y'all going? And he was like, we'll be back. And I'm like, yeah, that's great, but that's not what I asked you, like, where are you going? And he was like, we'll be back, we'll always be here, just call our name. And I remember waking up, and that dream stood out to me so much, not because of necessarily what he said, but my grandfather up until this point never spoke in my dreams. It was always just his presence around in my dreams. But seeing as though he spoke in this dream, I really took that as something that I needed to dig more deeper into. So I did some digging, and it led me to the path of Hoodoo. I'll put it like that. And I've been practicing out loud ever since. And like I said, that was about 2012. And then fast forward to 2017? Or was it 2016? It might have been 2016 is when I really started to take my practice serious. I'm one of those practitioners, and if you've been in my live, you will hear me say that I ran from my purpose for a long time. I wasn't one of those practitioners who was accepting. I wasn't one of those practitioners that like went out and like searched for information. Like I didn't want these gifts. They were heavy. I didn't know what to do with them, and it seemed like a lot. It wasn't until my life started to fall apart during my Saturn return that I really started to take my practice serious, and my practice is what helped me build the life that I'm living today. So I encourage all of you who are on your journey to keep at it. Hoodoo can be very rewarding, and I always tell people, if you are on your path and you're not on your path for the purpose of self-betterment, then I suggest that you reconsider this, because Hoodoo is one of those traditions and one of those practices that will definitely make you face yourself. You cannot practice Hoodoo and not face yourself. I tell people that all the time. Like, a lot of people get into Hoodoo for all the wrong reasons, for quick fixes, for love, for whatever it is that you feel like needs improvement in your life, but that's where it stops. It doesn't go any further than what it is that you want in the moment, and that's not what Hoodoo is about. Hoodoo was birthed from our enslaved ancestors who carried our traditions from Africa to here and had to find a way to hide their practices, and that turned into being something that protected us, that turned into being something that liberated us, and Hoodoo is not one of those things that I take lightly. So if you are serious about your Hoodoo practice, you are welcome here. I will definitely be posting more videos, but I just kind of wanted to give you guys a little bit of a background as to how I became a Hoodoo practitioner. And I'm going to be doing more videos kind of separating all the time periods in my life that I just talked about, but this was just kind of an overview. But if you would like to know more about how I practice Hoodoo, you can definitely follow me on all my social media. I'll leave that in the description box, along with my website, where I sell Hoodoo curios. So I sell conjure or conditioning oils. I sell roots. So I definitely have Hydron root, which I will be doing my next video on. I have money rice. I have a plethora of things. So if you would like to get you something nice, you know what I'm saying, go over to my site, sunmaker.com. You can subscribe to my Patreon. I will put that in the description box as well. And I started my Patreon because that's the only way that I knew how to protect the culture, which I will be talking about that in a later video as well. But I don't want to take up too much of your time. I hope you guys have a dope ass rest of your day. Thank you for joining me here on this channel. If you are a new Hoodoo practitioner, make sure you drop it in the comments why you decided to start practicing Hoodoo and what type of content you want to see from me, because I'm always open to more suggestions. I love you guys. Again, thank you for being here, and I will talk to you soon. Peace.